Thank you for joining us for our very first conversation on Promise in Me Unleashed with the Dr. Byron J. Williams, the author of The Promise is Still Valid. You don't want to miss this candid, inspiring, and uplifting conversation.
Thank you, Byron Williams, Dr. Byron J. Williams, for joining Promise in Me Unleashed. So glad to have you. Really, really excited. And let me just first kind of recap, because you and I had a little conversation, but I just want to share with our viewers how you and I got to this point. So, of course, you and your fabulous self decided to post your upcoming book called The Promise is Still Valid. And I mess around, I'm scrolling through Facebook, minding my business, and all of a sudden, I see your picture and I see the book. But when I saw the title of the book,
Yes.
and I told you this, I felt like Elizabeth when baby Jesus in the womb and Mary went to go visit her. Something jumped in my wound, and immediately, you know this, immediately
Yeah.
I text you and I sent you a message and I said, we got to talk.
Yeah.
And I was so appreciative that you text me back and we decided what time it was going to be. And actually we talked that day.
Yeah.
But it was really just kind of like evidence. It was confirmation for me. Because I had been thinking about and preparing to do this, what I'm calling conversation.
Right.
It's
Okay.
not a show, because
Yeah.
shows have their thing, a
Right.
show's a show and that's it. But it's really a conversation and really engaging people who have uh, took a hold of the promise
Yes.
in them and the promises that were made to them, to us.
Right.
And so when I saw the promise is still valid, I was like, hold on. All right, God, I got it. That is the message. It was the confirmation of moving forward.
Mhm.
And so I just so appreciate you for following God's leading. And I want to talk to you about, well, first of all, just tell, everyone just a little bit about you and tell them how you came to this point of writing this book.
Wow. So a little bit about myself. Uh, how far back you want me to go?
Listen, now, I told
I
you what
go
happened
back.
to me. That baby leaped in my womb. So if you want to go that far back, we can go that far back.
Just yeah. So the promise is still valid. It actually I started working on it prior to my stroke. Actually, a stroke in January of 2020. We in 2020. So I had a stroke January 23rd. I actually started writing this book before then.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Mm-hmm.
it really came into fruition after that. I was like, how am I going to do this now?
Wow.
That's when it started forming. It's like, okay, the whole concept was nothing but God, because it's like 7 chapters. I was like, God, nobody wants to read a 7-chapter book. It was 7 chapters, and the 7th chapter is going to be the title of the book. I leave the 8th chapter blank so people can go through and make notes and start a new beginning out of something they read in this book.
Right.
Like, I was like, okay, this ain't nobody but God that has come up with concept, and it's like you're going to stick to it. And so even when I proposed it to my publisher, oh no, this is I can tell this is where God wants you to go. This is what we're going to do. I was like, no, but it's not long enough. It's just like, no, we're going to stay here, and this is what we're going to do to finish it.
Wow.
And so um it just the whole title just spoke to me about how God made a promise to us, and sometimes I try to abort it. Sometimes we'll try to do something different, and God said, "This is the plan. You got to stick to it." And so what's crazy about it, I actually started with another publisher before I got sick.
Wow.
So it wasn't coming the way I wanted to. And the publisher that I have now, Tamika Woodard, give her a shout out. She's excellent. I think I talked to her mid-July, and by October we were done. She was like, "Nope, this is what we're going to do." And so she helped me walk through, finish it out. I already had a manuscript, but she basically said, "We're going to redo this manuscript, and this is how it's going to be laid out." And so she's the quote lady. So it's in the book, and she was like, and we have this. Even yesterday, I was talking to her. She was she was going through and she was pulling out quotes for the book. And she was like, oh my God, this book is blessing me. And I was like, calm down, just calm down. So now she tells me, no, I don't want to talk to you no more because you always telling me to calm down. But she was like, you just not going to believe how this book is going to be a blessing to people. And she has like a team of editors. Mm-hmm. And she's like, you all read it, just let me know what you think. And they just came back to her and was like, this quote, I like this quote. This quote spoke to my, and I was like, okay. So I'm like, I still don't believe her. Then you called, and I was like, okay, God, I still don't believe it.
Even after my report, you didn't believe it.
Okay, God, I still don't believe it. And so, so I'm starting to, process and accept what God is having me do right now in this season.
Yes. And what a timely season. One of the things that I caught in what you just said when you started, you said, how am I going to do this? This was after having had a stroke. And, we'll talk about some health conditions because, I got a whole story. And that's why the promise is so important to me, why that word, and not just the word, the manifestation of a promise, once you believe it, you can start seeing those changes happen in your life. So just like Tamika has some quotes, I also had a few quotes from the book, because I'm telling you, you talk about things just leaping in your womb. There were some things that you said in this book that snagged you, and you read it, and you were like, wait a minute, hold on, I have to go back and read it. So there was a couple things that I pulled off that I want to reread to you.
Okay.
And see if you can kind of just expound on what your thought process was. Okay.
Yeah.
So in the first chapter, this is what you said. You said, God places you in situations in order for others to see how great He is.
Yes.
He is, and to recognize His excellence in your life. Now go on, give me a little bit about what was on your mind when you wrote that.
Well, the title of chapter 1 is What Was Designed to Kill You. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, and actually this was out of a message that I had, was designed to kill you. And so as I was putting together the book, I realized that God He puts us in situations for Him to get the glory and to see other people see God working in our life. And sometimes we forget about that. But God will send us a reminder, no, this is why I got you here. Mm-hmm. And part of this, I remember when I was in rehab, we had our group therapy, and I was having a moment because I was like, why this now?
What am I doing?
Yeah. And it was a brother that came in, and this was his 8th stroke. Wow. Younger than I was. And God said, see what I'm saying? This brother came to therapy and was still smiling and say, yeah, this is my 8th stroke, but I'm still going to get it together. The Lord said, I was like, okay, I'm not complaining about nothing else no more. What I got to do to get out of here. And so what I can't gather from that is like, God is saying he's placing us in positions that may not feel good to us, may not be comfortable, but He's using us for other people to get glory for Him out of our life. And I thought about Lazarus. When Lazarus was dead, I'm sure Lazarus was thought, Lord, you're going to let me die. Mm-hmm. You're going to let me lay in this grave for 4 days before you come check on me.
You think Lazarus had some forethought or after? I don't think so, Byron. I think he was dead.
I'm just saying. But that's the type of thing we go with. We're like, I'm in this tomb and I'm in this situation. And Lord, when are you going to come see about me? Because other people are checking on you. The sisters had attitude. They knew how Jesus was and how powerful He was. Attitude when He first got there. Sometimes we'll be in situations we got an attitude, but it's not what was designed to kill you. And it was just like, and it's not necessarily a physical death. Sometimes some things we go through, relationships we go through, with job, employment, unemployment changes on us. And, you thought you was going to be at this company forever. And all of a sudden now they let you go and they let you day off like they did Craig and Friday. Craig got fired on his day off. So
or like me, they decide to cut your salary by $30,000 because they can't figure out how they're going to sustain a program. I was like, no, right. But anyway.
So, and the thing is, if we let these things kill our emotions, we let them kill our spirit, then we're not effective anymore. So it may have been designed to kill you, but it was designed for God to get glory out of it and to see other people be God great in you in this process.
And you know, it's something, because something you said in chapter 3, again, that took me out. You started talking about avoiding suffering. So this is what you say. And this is before you said something. Well, this is after you said something else. You said you end up making mistakes and making decisions based on an attempt to avert suffering. And sometimes you end up going through worse than what you should. But then you come back and you say the beautiful thing that God's plan for your life is that he covers you while you're suffering. Now, that right there was just for me. I don't know how anybody else took it, but when I read that, I said, that is so true. Even while you're suffering, you kind of feel like, God, where are you? Like, how long am I going to be in this shock trauma? That was for me. I mean, 9 days in shock trauma. How long am I going to be in this situation? But all the while, he's protecting you. He's covering you. He's got the right doctors and the right nurses, and they're putting you and they're giving you the best of care. You're suffering. Now, that didn't minimize your suffering. Let me just tell you, and I know you can attest to this, it didn't minimize your suffering. But all around you, you were being protected. So just tell me a little bit more about that.
I was, and not necessarily for me, when I was preparing this, I was just thinking about how just in life that sometimes we make a decision, and sometimes the decision was not biblically based. It wasn't on God. God told you to go left. You purposely went right. You thought that going left meant that you were going to have to give up something, not realizing that God already prepared for you to go left, but you go right. And then when you get there, you find out you got to spend more money. Oh, and by the way, you're living in a place where God didn't design you to live. Where you're in a relationship that God did not design for you to be in. Oh, by the way, you're at a job that you weren't designed to be there because you took more money or whatever. You weren't supposed to be there, so you're wondering why the people are mistreating you. But even still with that, guess what? He's covering you because he's giving you the grace to say, you know what? I can really go in this job and really tell everybody else. And God said, nope, I'm covering your mind because you still need some type of employment. You know what I'm saying? Wow. So God is saying, so even when, like in your case, it's like you can't move. You can't do anything. But while you're suffering, God is still covering us with his grace. And sometimes we'll be suffering no fault of our own. But he says, I still love you so much because you got to get out of this situation, because guess what? Somebody's got to see your story. So you're suffering. And I thought about how he just covers our mind. My cousin Jackie, we were just talking about how people of color, like our previous generations, like our grandparents, that they had a dementia.
Right.
And I said, I don't think so much that, I told her, my opinion is that dementia happened to our people because they saw so many things that were unjust to them that they couldn't do nothing about it. They couldn't go to get an attorney because no attorney liked them. They couldn't go to the police. So they saw so many things in their life that they just held on to. God's grace still covered them while they were suffering. And I think they just reached a point when it was time for them to transition. Everything just came out. And that's why, some of our families go through what they go through. And so I told her, I said, but God covers us because, she says, my prayer is that the Lord keep my mind. Whatever you do, God, just always keep my mind. And he do that for us. And that's why I say when he covers us, even while we're suffering, he's duty bound to bless us.
Yeah. So. Well, something that you said that really, there were so many points. I'm telling you, I'm just like, this.
Thank you so much.
He really messed this up because you interjected things that really resonated with me. And this is one of the things you said that I know people are dealing with right now.
Yes.
You said, and now this is in chapter 2. I jumped to chapter 3, but this is in chapter 2. You said, the past has a way of speaking to your self-confidence, which could leave you to not fulfilling all of God's purpose in your life.
Yes.
That right there, let me just say, the promise is still valid for those who are watching. Is a
Right.
simple book to read, but there
Yes.
are things that hit you as you're reading because you're saying, God, that's me, or that was me.
Yeah.
Our past, even when you were talking about your ancestors, their past, be it of their own volition or someone else's,
Right.
in many cases caused them to stay in that state that they were in.
Yes.
And I know many of us can attest to the same thing. Our past can stifle us
Yes.
and to keep us from fulfilling the destiny that God has for our lives, whatever that destiny or purpose is. It could be a dream that you had. It could be something that you started out doing as a child, and you realize, oh, wow, this is really what I'm supposed to be doing as an adult. But you do things in the midst or in the middle of getting to that place that you feel like you can't rebound from. You can't, pull yourself out of. And then the enemy has a way of making you feel guilty, and it messes with your self-confidence. You have the power to be great, not because you're great, but because God wants to put that greatness in you to reflect his glory. But you did X, Y, and Z, and now your self-confidence is what's standing in the way of your purpose.
Yep, absolutely. I just saw, I know a friend of mine who had a lucrative job in IT, decided, I'm gonna go be a teacher, probably $100,000 pay cut, but this was something they heard God say to them to do. And so sometimes we may look at thinking that our purpose is going to make us lucrative. We're going to be rich. You know what I'm saying? We're going to be well off. And God's promises that he said he will take care of us. But sometimes fulfilling what he has for your life is going to be essential, because you can have a lot of money and you can take care of yourself, your immediate family. But God said you are an impact person.
Right.
And to put an impact on people that's coming in and out of your life. And some people may come back and say thank you, and some people may not come, that you may not ever see them again. But I think that's what God is saying to us, is that as a child of God, as a Christian, as a believer, that's what Christ did. There were many people that Christ blessed that didn't make it into the Bible. Saying there were people that he impacted and they went away, and they probably never encountered with him ever again, but their life was changed because you moved in what he told you to do in your purpose. And at the end of the day, that's what we want to be. We want to be impactful in our purpose. Other people can reach their purpose. Other people people should be able to reach back and say, that promise that I thought was unattainable, guess what? I got to go back and do it. I got to go back and finish it.
Yeah. And something that you say, and it was very, very specific. You said God has the ability to strengthen your faith in order to complete the goal that he has for your life. But then you said this. You said, as you grow in your relationship with God, you will learn how to believe in your own destiny.
You got to.
That right there. I mean, it's the truth. If you don't believe in yourself, it's very hard to persuade other people.
Yes.
And the other part about that too, and I can just speak personally on this, if you walk in fear for so long, that shows up on the outside.
Yes.
And so when you're coming out of that space, you have to move forward knowing that this is what God has placed on the inside of you, and you got to do it. And probably dispel some of the thoughts that people may have had about you because they've seen you walk in this fearful state for so long. And I can tell you that is my story. I walked in a very fearful, intimidated state where everything that I was doing was impacted by the fear. Now I'm just crazy. Because I'm like, Lord, I done been through too much. I am no longer going to let the past stifle me. I'm no longer going to let the past restrict me. God is forgiving and a loving God. I'm going to walk in that forgiveness, in that love, and I'm moving full steam ahead. Now, he didn't say I wasn't going to have some trouble.
Right.
And you
Right.
attest to that. When you said you had this stroke and you were trying to figure out how this is going on, when I had the aortic dissection, when I had the breast cancer, these are life-threatening, instantly killing, in some instances, things that I had to walk through because I have come out of those things and have put fear in its place, which is behind me and under my feet. It can no longer dictate the purpose that God has for my life. So I'm walking now, I believe, towards the thing that I believe that the promise is still valid, is what I'm saying.
Oh yeah, all day. And then, you know, my thing was the relationship, because so you gotta have the relationship with God, and you gotta allow God to validate you. Sometimes in our life, in you know, in our churches, in our community, we look for people to validate us. I mean, we do. I mean, on our job, we want our supervisors to validate who we are, you know, to get our paycheck. And so sometimes we may let people's opinion, outlook on us determine where we go. It's so important that our relationship with God, because at the end of the day, guess what? So if you didn't make somebody happy that day, guess what? You got to go and say, God, I need you to help me make this right. And you have to, sometimes you're going to go where people don't think you should go.
Exactly.
I'm qualified to go, but you got to say, but this is where God told me to go. This is where God told me. And I promise you, it's so going to work out. If you allow God to dictate to you to where you have to go, and you believe in your promise, and you believe the purpose, and your relationship with him is solid, you are going to reach your destiny. I promise you, you're going to reach it.
And I know that's true. You know, and we can look at our lives are just a living testament about working things out. The beauty of it is that God didn't pass what you needed to become or to do through someone else.
Right. Exactly.
You. And so we have to be so careful not to look for, even though they may be the best person in the world for you to go to, because you know you have your go-tos. I have some go-tos that I pass things by. You know, I might send them a text or a thought or whatever. And I've learned how to weed out who I can do that with. But there comes a point where you have to determine in yourself, I don't need to run this through them if God's already confirmed it. If he's already validated. And I'm not saying don't go to people without getting wise counsel and things like that.
Exactly.
But if God puts you on a quest to move forward and to do something, you can't sit around trying to figure out, well, let me just see if doctor is okay if I do this or that. You know, you just have to move forward and trust is leading to navigate you through the process. You said God has not run out of miracles. Nope. He stands ready to bless you in our tomorrow. Now, where'd you get that from?
Oh God. Yeah, if God stands ready to bless us in our tomorrow, if you just trust him today.
Yes.
Okay. God, yeah, and so it's like your today could be messed up. You know, and I know for me, when I had my stroke, I was at the bowling alley with my son when I had my stroke, our way home, and just the grace of God, I didn't have it while I was driving. We'd get home, and I get into the driveway, and I get out of the car, and all of a sudden, like my arm is going numb. I'm like, what is going on? I was like, no, that can't be it. And so I'm gonna back up a little bit. God has a way to let you know when things are happening. I'm gonna tell you what happened. About 10 days prior to my stroke, my son came into my room one Saturday morning. He was like, Dad, I had a dream. And I was like, what? He said, I can't tell you. I said, no, it's okay. You could tell me. He said, I had a dream that you died. Ooh. And Mom had to come tell me. And I was like, okay. I said, no, I'm not going nowhere. We're going to be, let's go to school or whatever. So I get into the driveway 10 days later, and I can't pick up my gloves. I was like, man, what is going on? I said, okay. So I go into the house. He's already in the house. He's already got comfortable. And I stand there for a minute. And I was like, well, let me sit down. I was like, no, let me not sit down. In 5 minutes, I looked at him and someone said, you got to call 911. And I told him, okay, you got to get your coat stuff on. I don't know where we're going, but so I called 911. Then I called my daughter and said, look, you got to come to the house. Something ain't right. I don't know what it is. And so I attribute the dream that he had, he just being willing to listen. So, and what I said by that is that God will send you a reminder of how God is going to work in your life. He'll send you a reminder. Sometimes we have to be careful that we don't minimize the reminder.
Yes.
Oh, no, Victor don't always talk about. But I'm just glad that he was with me, because if he wasn't with me that day, I probably would have sat in a chair and said, let me just sit here, and not realizing, those first 3.5, 4 hours, how critical they were. And that's what made me go. When I looked at him, I said, I got to be here for him. So, okay, I called 911. I said, I don't know what's going on, but I got to get out of here.
Yeah. To another point that you said God began making a way of escape for you before you realized there was a problem.
Yes. Yes.
You got 10 days. You got the forewarning before you even realized there was a problem, but he was already making a way of escape. And you're right. Don't ignore those little things, those little signs, those little subtleties that people may just say to you. They're not always just blank checks, or they're not always just little, let me just push that under the rug. That could be the matter of your life.
It could be, and sometimes, like in the case of my son, it was like 10 days later. I remember when I was writing this, I remember I was 15 years old to this day. It was 15. My dad's a pastor, and it was a Sunday night service. Mother Franklin came now Mother Franklin didn't see me over and over again, but this night she walks in the door and she said, oh, you're going to be a pastor. I'm like, no, I'm not. And slapped me in the back of my head, because she's like, you're not going to disrespect it. I said, but Mom, she told me I'm going to be a pastor. I don't want to be no pastor. I just want to play the drums. That's all I want to do. And I'm like, Lord. Now, Mother Franklin was probably 87 years old at that time when I was 15. So,
You already thought she was on her way out.
I thought she'd know what she was talking about. So I'm like, okay, so God says, here's something will take place 35 years later.
Wow.
Here's something that I spoke that you're going to take place 10 days later. I mean, it's just that God is so awesome in how he orchestrates our life that if we could plan it ourselves, if we had the best marketing people, if we had the best directors, if we had the best cast, we could not even orchestrate our own life better than we can. So that's why we got to give him glory. That's why we got to praise him, because
only you could pull these pieces together. Only you could pull these raggedy pieces together.
Yeah.
Only him.
Because other people wrote you off. Other people wrote me off.
Or they would have wrote something that really wasn't for you. It wasn't. It's like trying to put a size 9 shoe in a 9 foot in a 7 size shoe. Yeah. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. But then I love what you say. This is not the end of your story.
Oh yeah.
That right there, it isn't the end.
No. I love that chapter.
Yes. Tell me more.
That's chapter 6. This is not the end of your story. I just thought about how you could be at a place where you like, this is it. Not even physically, but just emotionally, you're drained. Things, and we all can think about, if you think about it in your life, there's some things that you went through and you said, I'm done. I'm done. But then the Lord said, guess what? This is not the end of your story. And I got this from when I was working as a chaplain at the rehab hospital in DC. And Sunday morning, we do Sunday morning worship. Now, people in rehab, at this hospital facility, Monday through Saturday, they working you 6 days a week.
Wow.
Sunday is the only day you get a break. And I just thought about how people would come to worship, and some of them were church going people. So, they used to have it on their suits and, their hats. But guess what? They got to come down in their pajamas and a nightgown. If people had a brain injury, guess what? They got a helmet on their head, a back injury. They can't walk. They're in a chair. Mm-hmm. It was just like those 45 minutes. They were like, I'm here to give God praise because I'm still alive. And I used to do this thing with them called, I may have spoke maybe 15 minutes total. But the thing I wanted to do with them, we had this thing called Joys and Concerns, where we went around the room and just say, hey, what is your concern and what are you joyful of? What are you happy about? And I think this was really a turning point in my ministry, because I realized that people, and one of our instructors, and Miss Ruth, and she was an elderly white lady that was an Episcopal preacher. Mm-hmm. And she told us, she said, people do not care nothing about your Holy Ghost. She said, all she wants to know is, can you help them get to the presence of God? And I'm like, you know what? Don't nobody care about your Holy Ghost. But as a conduit of the Spirit of God, can you help people that are struggling get to the presence of God? And so guess what? It may not be you talking all the time. So I had other people who were injured, other people who did not sign up to be here. They would come to this room, they hear the message, like I said, 10, 15 minutes, and then they would share their own story about how they got here. But guess what? This is how the Lord blessed my family, because my family was disjointed. They were all over the place. But because this injury, guess what? My sons and my daughters came together, or my sister, they came together because of this. And I remember one time I was at Bishop Robinson's church, and there was a lady that came up to me during the service. She said, you don't remember me, do you? I said, no, I don't remember you. So in my head, I'm like, I said, I don't remember you. She said, I came to one of your services. She said, I was the lady that had the helmet, and I was in the wheelchair. And she said, I had a brain injury from a car accident. And that's all I remember was, she said, I just remember you being there for us. And I just want to tell you, thank you. Now, I don't remember the message. I don't remember none of that. But just the fact that she said, you came to be with us. And we had no musicians. We played music on a CD. We did, a cappella worship. But these people were so grateful just to be in the presence. And it wasn't even in a chapel. We were in a gym.
Wow.
We were in a rehab gym. So you got benches all over the place, and you got, uneven bars where people got to try to walk through. We got all this stuff in there. And people's like, I don't even care about that. I don't even care what you look like, because I'm sure I look like a mess too. I'm just here in the presence of God.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. So this is not the end of your story. So no matter where you are, as long as you believe in the promises of God, guess what? This is never going to be the end of your story.
Excellent. And one final quote, and this is what you said, it really kind of surmises the promises. You said, at this moment, when God is asking you to come, and this might have been what that Episcopal
Episcopal priest, yep.
He has set no prerequisites other than to trust his word. That's what she remembered.
Yeah.
From you speaking into their lives in that setting. Yeah. She said, I remember that the woman who said that the one who had was in the accident.
Yeah.
You were describing.
Yeah. And I didn't recognize her because she was walking. Mm-hmm. Or she didn't have no helmet on. I mean, she looked like the miracle that she was. So that's why I'm like, no, I don't remember you. And when she told me, I said, are you sure you're the same? She's like, I'm telling you, God did this thing. And I was like, okay, I take him at his word.
Yes. Yeah. And listen, that's what it's going to take for us to fulfill the promises that God, that's what the promises are. They really are. They are God's word. And when we take a hold of those things and we believe them, guess what? The promise is still valid.
It's still going to come to fruition. Yes.
It's still valid. And it's still going to work out for you.
Yeah.
Pastor, Dr., Brother Byron, all I can say is thank you thank you for writing this book. For those who are viewing, this is not a hard read. You don't have to sit up all night and put on lamps and all this kind of craziness to just sit and read. It really is a right now conversation with yourself. When you read this book, you will be just seeing yourself in those situations. And not only that, but being inspired to believe that the promise that's already in you is still valid. Is still valid. And so I appreciate you for coming on, being our first guest on Promise in Me Unleashed. I know that this was divinely ordained, because it doesn't matter what your vocation is.
No.
There's a promise that's for you. God already had a plan and a purpose for your life, whatever that is. Doctor, lawyer, philanthropist, businessman, businesswoman, and we'll be hearing from all of these people. Rising, budding authors and artists, scientists, and we'll be having these conversations. But I believe that this book was really the title in and of itself, and its content are really for people who really need to know what the promises are, and that's why it's Promise in Me Unleashed.
Yes.
Listen.
Thank you so much.
Promise in Me Unleashed. Because the promise is still valid. So I thank you so much. Look, I'm going to call you by your first name. See how close?
Sorry.
But please tell people how they can get your book.
The book currently is on Amazon. The Kindle version and the paperback is on Amazon, and the audio book is going to be released in about another week on Amazon. And thank you all so much for just being a part and supporting us. The website is drbyronjwilliams.com. So that's our website for the book, and you go and you can leave comments. Also, if you've already purchased the book, please go to Amazon and give your review. This how good God is. The very first 2 weeks, we've shot up to number 2 on new book releases, and we didn't even have the paperback. It was just the Kindle version. So I said, so next time when we do the next book, we're gonna have everything really at one time. But God just let me know. I let you shoot up to number 2 right out the gate, and I was like, this is nothing but God.
Oh yes.
So I really believe that there is a purpose in this promise. Just remind people that God has not forgotten about you. And I'm just thinking, like in 2020, that God is saying, in all this, the pandemic, people being off work, people got to move back in with their families. I've seen people that are in their 40s. I got to move back in with my mom. I'm like, yeah, this is real, real. But people got to understand that God has not forgotten about you, even in this. And I promise you, He's gonna work it out.
Guess what? The promise is still valid.
Still valid. I don't care if you got to live with your mama for a little while. Guess what? The promise is still valid.
No matter what happens, that promise is still valid.
Yep.
No matter what is going on, no matter what you may have to, I don't care if you got to take 10 steps back and take 2 steps forward. You just keep taking those two till you catch up with the 10, because that promise is still what it is.
Yes.
And so I tell you, it has messed me up forever. I wrote as you did, and it is so the power of His promise.
Yes.
There is power in that promise. So just know that it's still valid, and people need to just hold on and grasp that. That is what this conversation, I call it, is all about. It's really encouraging people to know that they can move forward in whatever vocation God has planned for them. You just have to remember that the promise is still valid. What more can I say?
Yes. Amen.
Doctor, pastor, and you didn't tell anybody about your doctorate. They might as well know a little bit more about you. The reason why this is so important for you all to know this young gentleman, veteran, completed his doctorate all while all this is going on. The stroke, the book, all of this is happening. So you're not stuck in just doing one thing.
Right.
He will
Right.
open an opportunity for you to do several things at one time.
At one
So,
time.
just
Yeah.
talk
I was on January 21st, I turned in my dissertation to the committee. And then on the 23rd, I had my stroke.
Mm.
And then I'm in the rehab. So I'm in the hospital for 6 days. I go to rehab on the 29th of January. And I'm in the rehab until the 19th of February. And so I let my mentor know so they can let the school know. And I was like, I got to get this done. And so he was like, well, they approved your dissertation. You got to defend it.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, geez, how am I going to defend it? So I'm in rehab. I get out of rehab on the 19th of February.
Mm-hmm.
The 19th of March, I defend my dissertation.
Wow.
And so my my degree is a business administration, but I did my study on how the Affordable Health Care Act impacts nonprofit hospitals. So I was able to work in my stroke into my dissertation defense. And when I got done, the committee, I think they had 2 questions. It was one person asked on the committee, you sure you had a stroke less than 60 days ago? I said, yes. And she said, I couldn't tell. She said, there was no slur. And then second of all, I think the second question was, what would you do differently if you had to do this all again? I said, not have a stroke. Not have a stroke.
Number one.
Yeah. And so I'm thinking, okay, I'm done. So basically there was a couple of things I had to do, but then and this would really mess me up. My dad passed away when I started my degree, and they conferred my degree on his birthday.
Wow.
May 31st was his birthday, and they conferred my degree on his birthday.
Nobody.
I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. My mom passed away when I finished my master's. My mom passed away, and my dad, when I started my doctorate, my dad passed away, but they confirmed my degree on his birthday. And then, like I said, okay, well, I'm done. But then it's like, nope, you got to finish this book. I was like, oh. So yes, so 2020 is, in spite of everything that's going on, God showed that I still have purpose for you. So I'm just letting everybody know, guess what? No matter what you got to go through, God still has purpose.
And guess what?
What's
the
that?
promise is still valid.
Because the promise got to be unleashed in you. It's got to be in there. It's got to be unleashed.
That's it.
Yes.
Yes. You got to let it out without fear.
Without fear.
You got to let this thing out. You don't know how many people you are required to impact.
Yep.
See, that's what I'm learning. There are people that are assigned to you, and we have a responsibility to release the God-given promises,
right?
So that other people are blessed. It's not about me anymore.
Nope.
You know,
as much as I want to.
Listen, it's not about you, but it's a blessing that it's not about you. Because if it was, it would stop with you and not go any further.
Not go any further.
But we serve a great big God who desires to do great things in our lives, and we may not even understand. I'm going to tell you the truth. For me, I don't even understand. But I do understand this. I'm living and I'm breathing, just like you in your dissertation. You walking, talking, and chewing gum, and she's trying to ask you, you just have a stroke? You sure? Because she can't believe it, you know. And who would? I listen. When I saw you, and we're going to end. We're going to stop talking. But I do want to say this one thing. I saw you, and could have almost asked the same question if there hadn't been other people who had already confirmed that. Yeah, he did have a stroke, and he, because you don't look like what you've been through. And that's a blessing in and of it. That's a miracle in and of itself, that we don't look like what we've been through. And one of those reasons why, and I firmly believe the main reason why, is because we held on to the promise.
Yes, absolutely.
We held on to the promise. And so we are blessed. Again, if I don't say it again, I thank you so much. And we look forward.
Thank you.
Hey, listen, we're not done yet. There's another book hiding in our loins. That's got to come
Oh,
up.
I already started. So
Yes. Well, listen, I look forward.
Tamika's like, oh no, there's another one. I said, but I do have one. She said, okay, let's get started. And I said, but we still on this one. She's like, mm-mm. And so when I told her the title of that book, she's like, oh no, we're moving forward.
It's not Thank You for the Good Life, is it? It's not Thank You for the Good Life, is it? Because that's
No,
my
this
song.
one.
I'm just checking.
Oh no. Book 2 is gonna be The Storm Was Necessary.
Woo.
The storm was necessary.
Viewers, look out. We're just getting started.
Just getting started.
Dr. Williams, thank you so much. And we look forward to talking to you next time.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Our viewers, Promise in Me Unleashed. Prepare yourselves because we're coming at you again for another wonderful conversation. Take care and have a good evening.
Thank you. God bless.